Welcome back to Mucking with Matthew. Today we're going to make Kung Pao chicken. Step 1, we're going to take 2 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken thighs. We're going to cut those into bite-sized pieces so they're easy to eat. Next, we'll prepare the marinade. In goes 1 teaspoon of cornstarch, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, and a couple cracks of some beautiful black pepper. Now we're going to prepare the marinade. Just listen to that sound. Wash the hands, keep it hygienic. While the chicken marinates, we're going to prepare 2 cups of rice with 2 cups of water. For the sauce, we're going to add 2.5 tablespoons of sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of cornstarch, 4 tablespoons of soy sauce, 3 tablespoons of rice vinegar, a 1/4 cup of chicken stock, and finally 3 tablespoons of water. Give your sauce some whiskey business. In a hot pan, we're going to add 3.5 tablespoons of vegetable oil, spreading it around, a 1/4 cup of raw peanuts. Unfortunately, we had a casualty adding the chilies, so next we're going to add the cut, boneless, skinless, marinated chicken thighs. Add your chicken in batches, and we will take it out once it's cooked to reserve. Next, we'll add a 3/4 bunch of green onions, an inch knob of minced ginger, 8 cloves of minced garlic, and we'll add in our chicken, mixing well. Everything's combined. It's looking nice. Next, we'll add 8 red Thai chili peppers, our roasted peanuts, and finally our Kung Pao sauce, which we'll stir to thicken, and we will be ready to serve. Alright, so as we eat, we will be discussing, looking at the notes here, the Kung Pao. So, Kung Pao uses a method of cooking called stir frying. Once you go back to the origins of Kung Pao chicken here, so it's created by Ding Baozin's chefs as a special dish to serve guests when they arrived. A Chinese official that lived during the Qing dynasty. Funnily enough, one of the first people to be served Kung Pao chicken was General Zhu Zongtang, the real General Zhou, which is General Zhou's chicken. Very good. Although it's unclear exactly how Kung Pao chicken was introduced to the public, once it was, Kung Pao evolved from a basic dish of stir-fried chicken with fermented sauce and leeks with a walnut garnish into what we know today, which is more of a peanut spicy chili kind of chicken with like a soy sauce with it. Very tasty. Kung Pao chicken was and still is one of the most popular dishes within the Sichuan provinces of China.
Kung Pao chicken is made with like the technique of stir frying, right? And stir frying originated in China. It was developed in China as a cooking method, and it was supposed to just be very efficient. And basically how it worked was it was meant to be used on like brick stoves. The way that it was done was it was supposed to cook food really, really fast so that they could like preserve fuel, because fuel was very like precious back in the day, and that was just like one of the ways that they could cook it and it'd still be like worth it, you know what I mean?
So it's basically oil and chopped foods being stirred and tossed in a pan. More specifically a wok, And it cooks in minutes, is really quickly. It's one of the reasons why a lot of Asian dishes are really quick to make. Using the stir fry method, you make your dishes really quickly,
and you can make a lot of food very quickly as well. And that's part of the reason that a lot of Asian recipes, like if you see them online or whatever, and they're authentic, that's why they yield so much. Like the recipe that we use, for instance, 2 pounds of chicken, we cooked it in probably like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and
it was really quick.
It's quick, but the difficulty is that everything needs to be prepared quickly. You have to have everything at the ready because you're just throwing it into the pan. You're just going really quickly. You're stirring everything together, and it's ready really quickly. But you have to be fast, and you have to have everything prepared. So China, obviously being one of the oldest standing countries today, has rich cultural heritage. It's one of the oldest civilizations in existence. There's a lot to talk about. A lot of key points here. So before civilization even existed in China, it was inhabited by hominids. They evolved from what is known as
the Peking man.
This evolution, along with other factors, is one of the reasons people in China are generally smaller in stature compared to Western people.
Once the Chinese people evolved from the Peking man, right? Their civilization kind of started the same way that we've been looking at civilizations in this class, in the sense that it was just like small villages that all kind of congregated together and eventually made like what is known in China as the first dynasty, the Jia dynasty. And discoveries from this dynasty, like there was proof of like bronze work, and there was elaborate tombs. It's led some researchers to believe that human brains probably developed a little earlier than we originally thought. Each dynasty since the Jia dynasty has also like been super important in the development of Chinese culture.
So we're going to be talking about 4 key dynasties here today. So the first one is the Shang dynasty. It began an early form of the modern Chinese language, and it also made many advancements in math and astronomy, and developed an elaborate calendar system. So they would have introduced what is now known as Mandarin. Advancements in math, I believe, included the
abacus.
Abacus. Yes, this is one of the first major dynasties in China that really made some significant advancements leading to what China is today, as well as around the world.
And then you also have the Zhao dynasty, and it brought about the first like codified writing in China, and it was also the longest running dynasty in like Chinese history. This is where like Confucianism and Taoism and everything was developed, and they first developed the concept of heaven as well. Like some like religions began to form, right? And it was very early on in the development of Chinese culture, and you can just see that how important that was to humans even back then. You eat a chili?
Yeah. Oh my god. Next dynasty is the Qin dynasty. It had the first ever Chinese empire with one leader, and development of the Great Wall of China, terracotta soldiers, and first introduction of currency. So the Qin dynasty really made several huge advancements in the culture. So the way like the political system ran with having one leader ruling over the whole country. The first empire, so they started taking over, and they were quite a powerhouse in that time of the world, and really kind of focused in on war and the armies with their terracotta soldiers. The Great Wall of China uses as a fence. And the introduction of currency.
And this dynasty is also where Kung Pao chicken came from. They made a lot of culinary advancements as well in that time. People started cooking not just for survival, but for like enjoyment. You know what I mean?
Chili's really hurting me.
Yeah. It's actually killing me, bro.
I'm so
I'm
snotty
too.
right now.
I know, I'm snotty. I got it in my eye.
It doesn't hurt, but I'm just snotty and crying.
It's like ruining my life. I got it right here. And the last dynasty that we're going to talk about, because there's so many and so much has been added from all these different dynasties. We're only going to talk about one more. Was the Han dynasty. And the reason we're talking about this is because the Silk Road opened up to Western civilization, and this meant that trade routes and everything could happen between the West and East, and that's kind of where Western culture was integrated into Eastern culture. And also at the same time, poetry and literature was taking off, and the earliest written like record of medicine was developed as well, which like in that time was it was unheard of, right?
So back to our Kung Pao chicken. It was a dish that was introduced to the public that was considered rich. Came from a man with a position of power, and eating it made people feel fancier in their day-to-day lives. In reality, it was a relatively cheap dish to make, and still is, but the feeling of importance that people developed from eating it was worth way more. It doesn't cost much to make. It's rice, chicken, soy sauce, chilies and peanuts, and some greens. It's one of those where you have those kind of staples, but you can add in whatever you want. You can take things out if you'd like. Just kind of keeping the body of Kung Pao chicken. Poor farmers could eat it, and because it was invented by a man of power who enjoyed it, you would feel like you were in a position of power as well.
It just made you feel special, right? It's like people eating caviar, right?
Yeah. If caviar was
cheap.
Yeah. One of the key points as I'm crying over the spice is spice is very important in Chinese culture. So a lot of traditional Chinese recipes have spice, included simply because of the weather of the time period. It was cold and damp in China a lot,
and people ate hotter and spicier foods
to try to combat the cold. Also, when times were tough in China, spice was used to mask the taste of old food, as sometimes people would be eating meat that wasn't exactly safe to be eating, and it would make the mold or whatever it may be undetectable. So this was actually very common practice for a lot of civilizations, using spices to mask older meats.
A lot of Asian civilizations as well, like India, Japan,
as well as European. Especially if you were poor, you might have like a bit of meat that had to last you a long time. So as it got older, and now as we know not safe to eat, they would cover it in spices to mask the moldy taste. Still may have affected them, made them sick, but tasting it tasted good still.
The history of this country was like a pleasure to dive into, actually. Just even researching it this morning was really fun, and the food was great despite the spice. As we sit here dying.
Very good food, but
I'm a little too white for this, I think.
I'm not a big chili guy.
But anyhow, that was all from us.
I'd also like to thank Joshua Weissman for the recipe.
That's true.
He's the man.
I'd also like to apologize for Julio Trigo for kicking him from the group, but other than that,
do what you gotta do.
That's all from us.
Thank you for watching. Don't
Mucking with Matthew out.